Amy Winehouse wasn't just a singer. She was the embodiment of undeniable talent and a fierce personality that defied convention. Her husky, soulful voice became a symbol of authenticity in the music world. With an unmistakable blend of jazz, soul, and R&B, Amy stood out for her unique ability to convey, with every chord, the pain and beauty of life. In a musical universe saturated with manufactured and prefabricated figures, she remained true to herself, an irreverent artist, unafraid to show her vulnerabilities. For her fans, Amy was not just a music icon, but an invisible friend, someone who understood and shared their anguish and desires. Throughout her career, Amy never hesitated to show the world her "I don't care" attitude, but at the same time, it endeared her to her fans. Her sincerity was palpable, and her art felt like an extension of her own soul. She wasn't afraid to expose herself, to be vulnerable, to show her darker side. And it's precisely this authenticity that captivated so many hearts. With albums like Back to Black and Frank, Amy won over not only critics, but also a legion of fans who admired her for her artistic and personal courage. However, Amy Winehouse's story isn't limited to her greatest hits and captivating voice. She was also marked by moments of turmoil and tragedy, which caused many to forget about celebrating her art and instead focus on the personal challenges she faced. But on stage, she was transformed. Her presence was mesmerizing, and when she began to sing, everything around her seemed to disappear. The words became more than just lyrics. They became a universal truth shared between artist and audience, and it was in this context of challenges and overcoming that Amy one night did something no one would ever have expected, something that would forever change her relationship with her fans, and that no one else could replicate. What happened at that show? A completely unexpected decision of hers, one that brought tears, but also left an indelible mark on the memories of everyone there. Something that to this day still makes many people tear up when they remember it. Imagine being at a concert, eagerly awaiting the performance of one of the world's greatest artists, and suddenly she does something everyone in the audience could never have anticipated. What would you do if this stirred your emotions so deeply that the music ceased to be just a show and became a transformative experience? What happened on that stage was so powerful that even the audience could not have imagined it. And most shocking of all, no one knew it would be Amy's last grand gesture, something that would never be repeated. It was a night like so many others, but for Amy Winehouse fans, this show would be different. The stage was set, the lights were shining, and the energy in the air was palpable. Anticipation was immense, as no one knew what to expect from that performance, not even Amy. After a long absence, she had decided to return to the stage, and her fans, eagerly awaiting a reunion with the artist, were about to witness something that would surpass all expectations. What was going through Amy's mind that night? Was it the weight of her return, the pressure to deliver a flawless performance, or something deeper, something she felt but couldn't express otherwise? The stage was shrouded in an aura of magic. The neon lights shone, creating a mystical yet intimate atmosphere, as if each person in the audience were the only one present. The fans were thirsty for her voice, already immortalized in the recordings that touched their lives. The clock ticked, and when the lights dimmed, silence fell over the venue. The audience was on edge, as if waiting for the first chord to release the building tension. That's when she appeared. Amy, with her proud posture and iconic look, took the stage and, as always, threw herself into her art with an intensity only she could muster. Her voluminous hair, her bold eyeliner, and her unmistakable stage presence were all her fans needed to feel finally whole again. She was there, live, and that was emotion enough. The first notes of the song began to echo through the arena, and the audience fell into a collective trance. But something was different that night. Something was in the air. and no one knew quite what. As the show progressed, the music seemed to have an energy of its own. Amy wasn't just singing, she was pouring her soul into every melody, every verse, every gesture. The audience was perfectly in tune with her, and the atmosphere reflected the intimacy she could create with her fans, even in large stadiums. However, in the midst of this delivery, something began to unfold differently. Amy approached the microphone with a softer, more introspective look, and something in her posture made everyone wonder, would this be the moment she would reveal a new side of her personality? It was at that moment that the real surprise began. What happened next, which no one would have expected from such a unique artist, took everyone by surprise. The audience, eager and completely captivated by the energy of the show, had no idea that this would be one of the most emotional moments of Amy's entire career. When she made the decision to do something she had never done before, emotions exploded, and the connection between her and her fans reached a whole new level. But what exactly would she do? That show, already shaping up to be unforgettable, took an unexpected turn. Something that simultaneously brought joy and sadness, something that would make Amy's story even more immortal, not only for her music, but for her unique and genuine connection with her fans. Those present knew this wasn't just another show. It was a historic moment, a true revelation. What happened that night, however, was much more than a simple performance. Amy, with her unique ability to connect with her audience, began to realize something that, until then, had never been realized in her career: the need to establish a deeper connection with her fans. She had always known her music had power, but that night, the power she felt emanating from her own soul led her to make an unprecedented decision that would surprise everyone. After the first part of the show, where she delivered some of her most famous and moving songs, Amy did something no one expected. She took an unexpected pause. The music fell silent, and fans, already accustomed to the intensity of her performances, began to sense a strange tension in the air. Something was about to happen. It was as if Amy was suddenly reflecting on the direction she would take in her life and career. Those words weren't just for her fans. They felt like a confession, a plea for connection. With a serene yet unusually intense gaze, Amy approached the edge of the stage, staring closely at her fans. She watched them with the same sincerity she had always demonstrated in her music, and with a vulnerability few had seen. The microphone was in front of her lips, but she didn't immediately say what everyone expected. Instead, she looked at the audience and asked a simple yet meaningful question. Who here has heard my music and felt something so strong that they can't describe it? A profound silence fell over the audience, who could hardly believe what they were hearing. This was a direct conversation, an exchange of energy, and no longer a performance. The audience, shocked, began to react. Several fans began raising their hands as if responding to a non-verbal summons. They were ready to experience something that transcended the simple act of watching a show. And it was at that moment that Amy did something completely unexpected. She began singing a song she had written, but not the version everyone knew. It wasn't just a performance, but a personal interpretation she had prepared especially for that audience. A version that, more than ever, felt like a unique gift, given only to them, to her fans. Amy knew that by giving herself up in that way, by opening up to her fans in such a vulnerable way, she was creating a memory that would never be erased. The song wasn't just a song, but a reflection of what she was feeling. She knew the audience would feel it, and the connection forming between them was about to reach an unprecedented level. The notes of the melody weren't just a sound, but a cry of expression, of surrender, and of love. Amy, in that moment, wasn't just the famous singer. She was a woman sharing a deep part of her soul with people who, in some way, understood her. The surprise was so impactful that the audience began to react viscerally. Tears began to flow, and the silence turned into a standing ovation. With each word Amy sang, more people were moved, not only by the beauty of the song, but by the sincerity of the moment. Something that could easily be dismissed as just another performance became a ritual of gratitude and humanity. But what fans didn't know was that Amy's decision wasn't just an artistic gesture, but a kind of farewell. She was doing something she hadn't done before, and something everyone knew deep down would never happen again. The moment was being lived there, and the weight of this decision, even though it was intentionally a form of celebration, was also bittersweet. Something was about to happen. Something that would change everyone's perception of Amy Winehouse and the legacy she would leave the world. That night, Amy Winehouse wasn't just performing for the audience. She was creating a connection that would transcend any previous show. Her fans weren't just passive spectators, but part of an invisible bond forming in that moment between artist and admirers. Amy's gesture of interacting so openly and vulnerably with her fans was a true invitation for an exchange of emotions, something rarely seen at concerts by major artists. She wasn't there just to sing. She was there to connect with each person in the audience, in a way she herself never imagined capable of. Amy's gaze on the audience was different. She didn't look at them like an artist who felt distant, but like someone who knew exactly what her fans were feeling. It was as if she were a close friend, sharing the same ups and downs of life. Every word she spoke was filled with absolute sincerity, and the fans sensed it immediately. They weren't just watching a show, they were having an intimate and unique experience with Amy, a moment that felt like it had been made just for them. As she spoke about her life, her struggles and triumphs, it felt as if Amy was sharing a piece of her own personal story with the audience. With each word, she revealed a little more about herself, creating a bridge of empathy with those who, for years, had admired her from afar. This was a rare thing, something that didn't happen often on stage, where the distance between artist and fan is often insurmountable. But that night, Amy broke that barrier and did something unthinkable. She made the audience feel part of her journey. It was as if she knew that, in that moment, her words were a balm to the hearts of those present. She spoke about her ups and downs, about the suffering and moments of joy she shared with those who always supported her. Amy's vulnerability became her greatest strength, because by opening her heart to her fans, she invited them to open theirs. Too, the show was no longer about fame or the spotlight. It was about a human being sharing their truth with other human beings. Fans who had previously seen her as a muse now saw her as someone who shared their pain, fears, and dreams. They no longer needed to admire Amy just for her music, but for her courage to be who she truly was, to expose herself without fear of judgment. And in that moment, everyone was united not only by her music, but by the raw and beautiful humanity Amy was sharing. The connection between her and her fans grew stronger and deeper. This moment, far from being just a performance, became a collective ritual. Amy's every word was like a collective embrace, a sense of belonging that united all those people in an experience that only music could provide. What was happening there wasn't just a show. It was a genuine emotional exchange that would last forever in the memories of everyone present. They felt seen, heard, and most importantly, loved. The connection with her fans in that moment felt transcendental. It was as if, through her music and words, Amy had created a space where everyone could be vulnerable, where everyone could find themselves. That night wouldn't be just another show in her career, but a memory immortalized in the hearts of everyone there. And while this was happening, no one knew that Amy's surprise was yet to come, an action that would make that moment even more unforgettable. The most anticipated moment of the night had arrived. Amy, still immersed in the energy and connection with her fans, took what was already a unique experience a step further. With the audience absorbing every word, every emotion, she knew this show couldn't be like any other. There was something in her soul, something that needed to be shared, and she was about to do something completely unusual, sing a very rare song, a previously unreleased version of one of her most beloved songs, but with a unique twist, as if it had been created especially for those present at that very moment. Amy approached the microphone with surprising calm. The stage seemed smaller, more intimate, as if the entire universe had condensed into that single space. She looked at the audience, now in absolute silence, and paused briefly, as if gathering strength for what she was about to do. The fans were about to hear something no other audience would ever hear. A unique performance, something only those present could call exclusive. And with that, Amy launched into a song from her repertoire that was reshaped by her voice, filled with profound and unprecedented feelings. She began to sing, but not simply. Every word, every melody seemed like a true declaration of love and gratitude, an unconditional surrender to the audience. The music flowed with new meaning, more emotional, deeper. The fans weren't just listening to the music. They were feeling every note, every word Amy sang, as if it were the last time she would ever do so. Each chord touched something deep within them, creating an atmosphere of pure magic. It was as if time had stopped, and all that mattered was that moment, that gift Amy gave to everyone present. The song, with its new interpretation, took an unexpected turn. Amy, her eyes shining with emotion, gave herself completely to the performance. She wasn't just singing, she was living the song, bringing out emotions that had been bottled up for so long. The audience, now immersed in this wave of feelings, began to react. Tears began to stream down the faces of fans who never imagined seeing Amy surrender so completely. She was becoming vulnerable in a way no one had seen before. The song wasn't just about the words, but about Amy's heart beating with every note. The impact of that performance was immediate. The fans, completely overcome by the intensity of the music, began to sing along, creating a spontaneous chorus that seemed to envelop the stage itself. It was a unique experience, a complete union between artist and audience. The voices of Amy and her fans mingled, creating an energy that reverberated throughout the venue, making the song even more powerful. It was a pure and raw exchange of emotions where, in that moment, everyone felt like one entity. There was no separation between artist and admirer. Everything flowed as a single being. As the song neared its end, the intensity of the performance increased. The silence that had fallen over the audience at the beginning, with the surprise of the new song, was replaced by a sense of awe and wonder. Those present knew they were experiencing something unique, something that would never be repeated. And it was with the final chord of that special song that Amy slowly stepped away from the microphone, no longer able to hide the emotion on her face. The audience erupted in applause, but there was something more there, something that could not be described with applause alone. It was a feeling of gratitude, of mutual understanding. Everyone knew that moment would be forever etched in their hearts. Amy, with teary eyes and a sincere smile, looked out at the audience. She knew she had done something that would never be forgotten. The music, in its purest, most emotional form, was there, alive and pulsating, and as the audience applauded, a sense that something bigger was about to happen hung in the air. Because that night, Amy wasn't just singing a song, she was offering her soul to her fans, and the impact of that would be felt for a long time. The show was already being considered one of the most moving and unprecedented experiences of Amy Winehouse's career. But even after the visceral performance that touched everyone's soul, she still had something more to offer, something she had never done before. As the applause began to fade, she, with a shy smile, looked out at the audience and did something That would take everyone by surprise. It was as if she knew the night couldn't end with music alone. Something more was needed, a gesture that would be the culmination of that intense, unique, and deeply human connection. Without saying a word, Amy made a move that left everyone stunned. She stepped away from the microphone and, with a simple gesture, asked a few fans to come closer. It wasn't something rehearsed or planned. It was a spontaneous moment, a non-verbal request for closeness and complicity. What began as a small approach quickly turned into something much bigger. She opened her arms, inviting those closest to her onto the stage. And so, with a symbolic gesture of openness, Amy shared the stage with those who, over the years, had become part of her life through music. These weren't just fans. They were friends, siblings, people with whom she felt a deep connection, and this was evident with every step she took. The scene was breathtakingly beautiful. Fans, initially hesitant, began to climb onto the stage with tears in their eyes, unable to believe what they were experiencing. What should have been the closing of a show became an even more moving experience. The audience and Amy, now united in the same space, became one. She hugged them one by one, as if in a gesture of gratitude, of recognition for all the love and support she had received throughout her career. Those hugs were not just physical gestures, they were a symbol of reciprocity, an act of generosity that Amy had decided to perform. Fans were in disbelief, but at the same time immersed in a feeling of immeasurable gratitude. Some were crying, others were still processing the magnitude of what they had just experienced. It was difficult to understand how something so simple, yet so powerful, could touch so deeply. Amy was no longer in the position of a distant artist, but rather alongside those who had supported her through her best and worst moments. She was there, sharing her success, her struggles, and her vulnerability, and that, as simple as it was the greatest gift she could give. The atmosphere on stage was charged with emotion. Amy, usually known for her fierce and irreverent attitude, now showed a softer, more human, more approachable side. These people were no longer in front of Amy Winehouse, the soul diva, but in front of Amy, the woman, the friend. The exchange of glances, the smiles, and the gestures between her and the fans demonstrated that this was not an act of simple gratitude, but a declaration of unconditional love. She wanted everyone to know how much this moment meant to her. And deep down, for everyone present, the feeling was mutual. The impact of this act was instantaneous. That night would be remembered by all as the moment Amy not only sang, but also gave herself completely to her fans, recognizing the importance of each and every one of them. It was the epitome of what has always been Amy's true legacy, the ability to transform music into something that unites, moves, and heals. She knew that show would be eternal for her fans, but also for her. The gesture of generosity, of opening the stage, of embracing and recognizing the value of each person there was not just a symbolic farewell, but confirmation that, in her art, she has always cared more about people than fame or success, and it was with this decision that Amy made it clear. On that stage, in that moment, she had given everything she had, more than her voice, more than her music. She had given her soul. The audience, now in ecstasy, gave a standing ovation, but something deeper was happening in everyone's hearts. It was as if, in that gesture, Amy had immortalized herself not only in the memory, but in the soul of every fan present. And most impressively, they knew that connection was unique, and that, as incredible as the night was, something deeper was being experienced. After Amy's generous gesture, a wave of emotions swept through the entire audience. The stage, now shared with fans, transformed into a place where music ceased to be just a performance and became a collective experience, an immersive experience, where pain, joy, gratitude, and love blended into a single feeling. The simple act of stepping on stage for a hug, a handshake, felt more like an expression of the soul than a physical encounter. And it was at that moment that the tears began to fall. Fans, who had previously been ecstatic about the music, now found themselves overwhelmed with emotion. It wasn't just the song that touched their hearts, but Amy's sincerity and humanity, as she had chosen to share such an intimate part of her journey with everyone present. For many, it was as if an invisible wall had been torn down. That figure who had seemed distant, untouchable, was now there, within reach, and the mere fact of being so close made them realize how deep their connection with her was. Some fans could barely contain their tears, their eyes brimming with tears, while others hugged each other as if they were part of something much bigger. It was a collective cry, but not one of sadness. It was the kind of overwhelming emotion that comes when you feel like you've witnessed something much bigger than expected, something that will be remembered forever, that will endure as an immortalized memory. Amy didn't just touch her fans' souls with her music. She touched something even deeper. She touched their hearts in a way no one could have ever anticipated. The tears weren't just of emotion, but also of recognition. The fans were there in a rare and unique moment, and they knew they were witnessing a fundamental part of Amy's story. What she did that night, the generosity and emotional dedication she demonstrated, was not common. Artists as great as Amy are often seen as unattainable, almost mythological figures. And for that very reason, her gesture of inviting her fans into such a deep, emotional, and personal exchange felt like a miracle. Seeing so many fans crying, feeling part of something so powerful, Amy couldn't hide her own emotion. It was clear she was touched by the love and dedication she was receiving. She never imagined her music, her voice, would be capable of generating such a reaction. But there it was, in tears and smiles. She had given it her all, and in doing so she had united her fans in a way that transcended any expectations. The audience, for their part, seemed grateful, but also in shock. How could such an intense and emotional night already be about to end? Amy's gesture made everyone see that, despite all the hardships and challenges she had faced throughout her career, her fans' unconditional love was what truly moved her. And that night, she gave them not only her music, but a part of her very soul. The collective weeping wasn't just an expression of great loss or grief, but also the realization that true love and human connection were beyond music. They were present in the moment she gave herself completely. The silence that followed the final embraces was almost reverent. Everyone there was processing what had happened, what Amy had done for them, and what she meant to each of them. It wasn't just her voice that touched them, but their hearts. Amy's true essence, unfiltered and unmasked, was there, completely exposed. And when the tears finally subsided, a profound silence fell over the audience, as if everyone knew that that moment, that gesture from Amy, could never be repeated. As the last emotion subsided, and the fans, still immersed in the magic of that moment, began to leave the stage, something silent and profound happened. Amy, now back at center stage, her eyes brimming with tears, looked at the audience differently. She was no longer the distant artist, the untouchable star. She was the woman who had just shared something unprecedented and unrepeatable with those who loved her, and in that look, something seemed to communicate without words. It was as if she knew that what was happening there in that moment was a farewell. It was difficult for the audience to understand what was happening. The show was coming to an end, but something about Amy's posture gave the impression that she wasn't just wrapping up a performance. She seemed to be, in some way, saying goodbye not just to her fans, but to something much deeper. Her gaze, filled with an intensity rarely seen in her career, seemed to reflect a whirlwind of emotions. She smiled slightly, but the smile seemed to carry a deep sadness, as if she was saying, "See you later," but unaware that there would be no later. The moment was so charged with emotion that the fans, who had previously been ecstatic, now seemed apprehensive. Each of them sensed something more happening there, something beyond the music and the performance, as if Amy knew she might never return to that stage in the same way again. The connection between her and the fans, which had felt like a celebration of life, was turning into a silent farewell, and words were unnecessary. Her look, filled with emotion, said it all. Amy stood there, motionless for a moment, gazing at the audience with a gaze that seemed to pierce the room, searching every face, capturing every expression. Her eyes were filled with gratitude, but also with something more, an acceptance that this was the moment to give her all, to give something that would go beyond a simple performance. She was present more than ever in that moment, and this was indeed a historic moment. But at the same time, her gaze conveyed a melancholy, as if she knew the end of the night meant something deeper, something no one could have predicted. It was then, before leaving the stage, that she made a final gesture. It wasn't a word, not even a traditional farewell wave. Amy simply raised her head, looked at the audience once more, and, with teary eyes, walked away. She didn't need to say anything. The silence that followed was even more eloquent. It was as if she was saying goodbye to an era, to a chapter of her life and career that was about to close. Perhaps she knew somehow that this was the last great moment of her career, the last time she would be able to give herself so completely, without reservation. And in that look was the recognition of all she had achieved, but also the understanding that none of it could last forever. As the audience applauded, many were still trying to process what had happened. They had been part of something grand, something that seemed beyond a simple show. But in that look, in that silent farewell, there was an unspoken sadness. Amy wasn't just saying goodbye to the stage. She was saying goodbye to what would perhaps be her last great live performance. There were no words to express what everyone was feeling in that moment. All that remained was the feeling that they had been part of something unique, something that could never be recreated. And so Amy left the stage with a final look that would forever be etched in the memory of all those present. That night would not only be remembered for its intensity and emotion, but for a moment in which the artist gave herself completely, not only to music, but to her fans, to life, and to a certain extent, to her farewell. A wordless farewell, but one filled with profound truth. That night would become legendary. Amy Winehouse's show wasn't just a performance, but a historic event, a milestone in the lives of her fans, something that would never be forgotten. When the stage doors closed and the lights dimmed, the audience, still in a state of shock and emotion, knew they had witnessed something more than a musical performance. The scene of Amy saying goodbye, with her silent, profound gaze, was etched in the collective memory of everyone present. But contrary to what many thought, the impact of that night didn't end there. On the contrary, it began to grow and reverberate in unexpected ways. Soon after the show, reports began to spread. Fans posted on social media, sharing their experiences and trying to describe the magnitude of what they had experienced. Words were insufficient to capture the emotional power of that moment. Some people spoke of how they felt as if they were with a friend, someone who, despite fame and distance, never let them feel alone. Others, more introspective, reflected on Amy's gesture of opening the stage and inviting fans into a communal experience. That night had become more than a show. It had become an emotional memory that would deeply touch everyone involved. The media, always attentive to the movements of a star like Amy Winehouse, quickly began covering the event. But what followed wasn't just praise for her vocal performance or stage energy. What remained, what was commented on and applauded worldwide, was Amy's gesture, her ability to bare her soul to the audience, to open up such an intimate part of her life to all those who supported her, caused a reaction few expected. The story of that show was soon considered one of the most moving and genuine performances ever given by an artist of her stature. Fans from all over the world began traveling to that venue, to that arena that had now become a landmark. Everyone there had a story to tell, something unique that could not be replicated, and with each story, with each post, the impact of that night only grew. People shared their emotions viscerally, revealing how Amy's music, so intimate and so real, had touched their lives in ways words could not express. She hadn't just sung for her fans, she had given them a part of herself, and this generated an outpouring of love, gratitude, and admiration. The reflection that emerged was profound. That night wasn't just about Amy as an artist, it was about Amy as a human being, her ability to connect, to give of herself, to be genuine. This made many begin to rethink their own lives and the relationships they established with others. Amy's show wasn't just a musical performance, but an invitation for everyone to open up, expose themselves, and truly connect with others. Her music, already therapeutic for so many, now transformed into a message of pure humanity. The true beauty of Amy Winehouse lay in her honesty, and this touched everyone present. Over time, that show would become a benchmark in all future discussions about the relationship between artists and fans. That night demonstrated that music is more than just notes and lyrics. It's a language that can unite souls in ways no one can imagine. For Amy's fans, that event was a transformative experience that united them in a way that a typical concert would never have. They had been part of something bigger than just a musical spectacle. They had experienced a historic moment, and no one would ever forget Amy's delivery on that stage. Amy Winehouse wasn't just a powerful voice or a star on stage. She was the raw and true expression of art. Her music, with its profound and emotional lyrics, touched the lives of millions. But it was the gesture of pure humanity that night that solidified her legacy in a way no song could. What happened at that performance wasn't just a show. It was a testament to the vulnerability, authenticity, and connection an artist can create with their audience. The way Amy gave herself, unfiltered and unafraid to show her own weaknesses, was what made that night so special, so unique, and unforgettable. After that performance, the way her fans viewed her changed forever. They no longer saw her as a distant diva or an unattainable figure, but as someone who genuinely cared about those who supported her. Amy's gesture of opening the stage, of allowing her fans to be part of that magical moment, was a reflection of her true essence. It wasn't about glamour or the spotlight. It was about humanity, about love, and about the ability to touch people with a truth that only music could provide. And that silent farewell look, that final gesture no one could have predicted, became a fundamental part of her legacy. Amy knew she was saying something more than a simple "see you later." She was saying goodbye not only to an era, but also to what made her unique, her ability to connect so deeply with others. And even though her early departure left the world in shock, that show was a perfect closure to her story, a final proof that she was always ahead of her time, always more than just the artist the world knew. Amy Winehouse's legacy extends far beyond her musical career. She left us a lesson about the importance of being true to ourselves, of giving ourselves body and soul to what we love, and of recognizing, at every step of the journey, the people who support and understand us. And above all, Amy showed us that in a world where many try to hide their vulnerabilities, true strength comes from accepting ourselves and sharing our stories, our pain, and our loves. Today, decades after her death, her music still resonates in the hearts of her fans. The connection she created that night lives on, not only in her songs, but in the memories of everyone who was there, witnessing a historic moment that marked them forever. Amy Winehouse's legacy is eternal, and the night she did something so unique for her fans will be remembered as a symbol of everything she represented, an authentic, human, and above all, genuine artist.